You know, a lot of time in Africa, it's not even about where you're born. You know, a lot of time it's all about where your parents are from. You know, it's what determine where you're from. Because, you know, if your parents from one place, you from another place, or the both, you could be born somewhere else, and you still could pick wherever you want to be.
Absolutely.
I just look at myself as a West African.
Right, right.
You know, Ghana is my blood. Liberia raised me. Nigeria disciplined me.
Did you live in Nigeria at all?
Yes, I lived in Nigeria for about 3 years. And that's why I got my...
Wait, you're really an ECOWAS kid?
I'm an ECOWAS kid, man. I represent all of us.
Right.
You know, you could drive between, well, it's a long drive.
Right, but you have, your DNA has Ghana and Liberia, but you've lived and you embrace all the cultures of that area.
My DNA is Ghana, but Liberia kind of like is where I spend most of my African life.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think my best education, I think I received it in Nigeria. And that way I got my best discipline. And I was probably about 9, 10, 11 years old when I spent time in Nigeria. And that's why Nigeria means a lot to me too, because that's why I went to school. Those 3 years I went to school there.
7 years of your life.
Those 3 years, because, you know, my mother, if you know the history about me a little bit, my mother was an evangelist. So, you know, she gave her life to Christ and decided to travel the world. We traveled most part of African village preaching. And she took her kids with us. And we driving in different places. So my mother would take us places, leave us there with Christian family, and go on to do God's mission. And I remember when she left me in Nigeria with an Igbo family named Chukwuka. Shout out to them. Very great family they had. It was a wife and a husband. They had about 3 kids, and they took me on as one of their own. And I stayed there, went to school, and got my biggest discipline. And I think all of that transformed to who I am today. And the only reason I had to leave Nigeria was one of the biggest things that every Ghanaian or anybody that has Ghana in their blood remember about Nigeria, where we had to leave Nigeria. You know the phrase?
Yeah.
What's the phrase?
Ghana must go.
Ghana must go, motherfucker. Between 83 and 84, I was a little boy, and my mother had to come back and get me because Ghana must go.
Wow.
And
do you have those bags, you know, the Ghana must go bags?
I couldn't afford them bags. But yeah, so that's my history to Nigeria.
That's very interesting.
And those 3 years I went to school there was probably my most disciplined. I probably got my best education around that time because my mother traveled so much. You know, between 1st grade and 8th grade, I probably saw definitely half of those.
Wow.
I remember 1st grade. I remember like 3rd and 4th and 6th. And then I went to the 8th grade when I came to America.
Wow.
You know, and when I got to America, I was told that at 13 years old, you should be in the 8th grade. So I'm like, okay, I need to contact Liberia was the last place I went to school.
Give me
and
some
I went to 6th
transcripts.
grade. So give me a transcript for the 8th grade.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm 13 years old, I have to be in the 8th grade. And I didn't know how I was going to make it, but by the grace of God and the discipline I got in me from Nigeria, I was prepared for the 8th grade.
Absolutely. And it takes discipline, by the way, for you to come this far in your career, Michael Blackson. I remember when I first moved here over 20 years ago, you were headlining shows in the DMV area. I think you have roots a little bit here in DC. Did you go to Howard University? Is that correct?
No, I didn't. Actually, the funny thing about it, 15 years ago, I dated a girl that went to Morgan State. And I remember I used to like sneak in her class. She let me go in her class and just sit in class with them and learn. So I kind of like stole some education. Morgan State, I owe you some money.
Shout out Morgan State.
Right, and there was probably like a year I would go in there like once every week into one of her classes and learn. But I never did the college thing. Unfortunately, when I graduated high school, you know, I came from a very poor family. We had nothing. Just my mother working, you know, and I had to help my mother pay bills. So I couldn't even go to college. I had to work full time. You know, and to help my mother pay bills and also send money home to help the rest of our family
like
out.
every African immigrant does,
And, you know, I did that, and, you know, God had a whole plan for me. God had a plan.
How did you get into comedy? What was your first step into comedy? Especially that, you know, you were kind of a different type of comedian.
Yeah.
You retained your accent.
Yes.
You were very unapologetic about who you were, your roots, and your Africanness, up to now.
All that came later. You know, when I first started comedy, you know, what even got me into comedy was just the things I went through as a child coming to America. Coming to America at 13 years old, I look different. I'm darker complexion. I have an accent. I'm really slim. You know, kids made fun of me. So I was very shy. I don't even know where this comedy thing came from. I just think this was just a gift God gave me. This is what's going to take you and do what I need you to do. You know, because I was a very shy kid.
Do you remember some of your first material?
Yes. In fact, one of my first material was, I was probably about 19, 20 years old when I started. And I was so skinny that I would go on stage and I would say, slim fast really works. And I opened my arm, right? And then my other joke was, when I first came to America, all my friends tried to make me feel at home, so they didn't feed me for a month. That was one of my first jokes. Africans hated it, but Americans laughed at it, and they paid me a lot of money. I apologize to my ECOWAS brothers and sisters and my East African brothers about that joke, but yes.
But I mean, look at you right now, over 20 years later, you're still in the industry, you're still relevant, you're still coming up with new material.
And that's the thing, man, in the business, keeping yourself relevant is the hardest thing, the most important thing. And I think, of course, social media helped. You know, because when it came out, my career was pretty much, you know, with comedy or even, you know, you get hot, and then if you're not consistently doing things, and then you phase off. Yeah. You know, and I remember around like 2000, like I did, my biggest break was the movie Next Friday.
Yes.
I did Next Friday, it came out in 2000. I was hot for like 4 years, and then things started to dim down again. You know, and then okay, what's
next?
What's next?
Yes.
But you know, every year during those time, I made sure I kept myself on TV, like Comic View. That was the number one thing we had back in the day. BT Comic View. So I said every year I have to get on Comic View so I could keep myself relevant. And then things died down around like 2006, 7, 8, 9. I'm like, what's next? What's gonna happen? And then boom, social media came out. When social media came out,
and you've been able to leverage that into
something. So 2009, Twitter came out, and I remember I got on. I was a little late. I was like 6 months behind. By the time I got on Twitter, all my friends already on Twitter, like Kevin Hart, you know, Lil Duval, and the Williams brothers. Those are all my comedian buddies. They were all already on Twitter, building a fan base, you know, already roasting each other and growing. And I could try to get in, and nobody wasn't letting me. Because with Twitter, it's about who you talk to. You talk to somebody, you could build your following from there. You know, if you have 100,000 followers, I have 5,000 followers. If me have a conversation on Twitter,
your fan base comes
in. Nobody wanted to talk to me. So I'm reaching out, trying to roast everybody, you know, and because at that time they were already verified. They all have worked hard those 6 months, and I'm like trying to get in, like, you got to earn this. They close the doors. So I kept reaching out, and then one day I just went and started roasting Kevin Hart every day, roasting him, and finally he responded. So when he responded, then we went on a big roasting battle on Twitter for like a couple of days, and that's what got me from like no followers to like 100,000 followers.
You tapped into his followers.
I tapped into his followers. And then since Kev roasted me, now everybody want to roast me now. So I started stealing everybody's followers from, you know, Terry Crews and Marlon Wayans and the rest of those guys. So, and then Instagram came, and then I was on time with that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I remember Instagram. You were one of the early adopters of Instagram.
Definitely. I used to do this. You know, usually I post a picture. Whenever I post a picture, my fans would take the picture and make a meme out of it. Like, because my outfit is real loud and my clothing are different, you know, because I like to stand out when it comes to dressing. When I was a kid, when I came to America, we had no money to buy nice, expensive clothes, you know, and so when I was finally able to get money, I made sure I looked good.
Absolutely.
And everything I wore, they'll make fun of my clothes. So my fans would take the picture of my clothes I wore, and it'll make a meme.
And they Photoshop
it with something else. Or they make a meme of what that picture looks like. And then I post it, and then that made everybody want. Every time I post a picture, everybody's doing something.
And you also encourage them. You tell them, do this, you know. You would. Other people would say, please don't do it, or they would feel somewhere. You were like encouraging it.
Yes, I love the heat. I like the. A lot of my fans have no idea. Most of them were my ghostwriters. Like, if I want a joke, I put an outfit on, I'm like, how do I look? They be like, okay. I'm like, oh, that's how I look? Thank you very much. Thank you for that joke.
That's genius.
Thank you for that joke. Because I think the greatest jokes are just making fun of yourself.
Absolutely.
Because if you make fun of yourself, people know you don't give a damn about nobody else. You know, so
you can make fun of them easily.
And easily, because they know I make fun of myself. So you could laugh at me, I can laugh at you.
Absolutely.
So
And so let's go back, fast forward to last month. Well, I think this month. When did you open your school? Was this in January?
Yeah, January 3rd.
January 3rd. This month, we saw you in Ghana inaugurating this school. Why education? Why did you feel like that was important for you to give back to your community, to your roots in form of education?
Well, I think education is the key for almost everything. You know, we want to teach our kids about health and staying safe. It starts with education. We want to teach them how to become successful in life. It all starts with education. And I remember when I went back home for the first time since I've been gone, since I was a little, you know, I went back to Africa for the first time since I left Africa. It was 2001. And when I went back, I went to Ghana. And when I went to Ghana, it was a year John Kufuor was just inaugurated, 2001. And I remember watching him on TV. I'm like, okay, this is the latest president. You know, I'm excited about being in Ghana. But then, you know, a lot of things I saw 20 years ago was almost the same as it was when I was a little boy. You know, and
There's no change.
Not too much change. I mean, I wasn't in a big city at that time. When I went back, I had just, you know, I did my little movie Next Friday. I didn't really make no real money. You know, my mother still lived. My mother still had a house in a place called Shama. Shama is like a very, very poor area outside of Accra. And that's because my grandfather owned the house there, and that's where my mother was. That's where I went when I went to Ghana. Instead of going to a hotel, I went there. And then I walk around during the daytime, just checking out things and reminiscing. You know, I remember the gutters. It's always this gutter everywhere. Every kid was traumatized by a gutter.
Yeah.
Gutters are everywhere in Ghana. And I remember them because I remember being traumatized looking into that thing.
That's part of the sewage system.
It is. Yeah. So, and I saw a lot of kids around, just walking around during school hours. I'm like, why are these kids not in school?
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, I found out that they can afford to go to school. And yeah, there are public schools, we just call government schools, but I think it fills up fast, and then, you know,
everybody goes on the street. There's no place to go.
No place to go. Those kids were out there in the marketplace selling stuff with their mother. You got 6-year-old kids that know how to add already. You know, they're doing math because they know how to give them 5 CDs to buy something. They know to give you 3 CDs back. I'm like, these kids should be in school. You know, they're out here working. You know, and it touched my heart. And then at that time, this was 2001. So I went to the local private school, and I was trying to get an idea what it cost. And at that point, it was about $80 a year. I'm like, $80 a year? I'm like, in the United States, if I'm at the bar, that's like 4 drinks, 3-4 drinks. Yeah. I'm like, I could get people to like, so I remember going back the next day, and I remember like
this was 2001.
2001. And I remember going back, and I saw those kids, and I was like, take me to your mother. I took them to the mother. I said, hey, you know, I heard school's $80 a year. Let me pay for these kids for the next 3 or 4 years. You know, whatever it is, $1,200, $1,300, if that. When that happened, I said to myself, I have to do something about this. I have to do something. It's too many poor little children walking around with no education. I mean, come on, how are we gonna know about protecting ourselves from sickness without education? Everything starts with an education. And you know, in the Western world where we live, it's free. You know, and the kids don't take advantage of it.
At least the basic education is free here, which is the most important part.
It is. You know, I never thought that education should come with some kind of financial barrier. You know, and it just touched my heart that I have to help the kids out. And it's always been on my mind for 20 years. And then, I mean, I
finally did it.
And I finally did it.
This was a dream for you.
It was a dream for me 20 years ago. And then 3 years ago, you know, and I said, okay, I saved some money. You know, my bills are paid. I think I'm good. It's time to
It's the right moment.
This is the right moment.
Yeah. So you just inaugurated the school. What's the name of the school? What do you call it?
It's called Michael Blackson Academy.
The Michael Blackson Academy.
Yes.
And which part of Accra is it?
It's in the central region. It's in a place called Nsaba, Agona Nsaba.
Okay.
The nearest,
it's not in Accra. It's outside Accra.
No, we're outside Accra.
Okay.
It's like about 2-hour drive away, unless you driving. If you're a Ghana driver, then you'll get there in an hour and 30 minutes.
Oh my God. So it's out in the rural area.
It's out in the rural area.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that was intentional for you to not put it in the urban areas.
Well, I wanted to go where it's more less fortunate children.
Right.
You know, and the less fortunate children are more in the rural areas.
Right.
You know, so and then I did it at land. My mother had a land there already, so I'm like, okay, let's tear this old house down. Let's build this school. Let's build a newer house here. And the plan was 3 years ago, and it's all done. It was such a
amazing.
Felt so good. Nothing like starting something and finishing it.
And
like
see
you
it
said you
to
would.
come to fruition.
Yes.
What is the plan for the school? Are you planning to expand to other regions of Ghana? Also,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you being an ECOWAS kid, or
Oh, yeah,
other West
I have to go
African
around.
countries.
You know, before I, you know, this is the first one in Ghana. This is my baby here. This is, you know, I'm
You
totally
prototype.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
This is my personal
Yeah.
baby. I'm
Yeah.
gonna, you know, I'm handling this out of my. I built up my own money, and I'm gonna fund it with my own money. You know, I did start a nonprofit. I'm like, okay, you guys want me to do more? I need you guys to help. You know, because
Fundraising.
fundraising to
Yeah.
do more. But Liberia is next on my list. I mean, Liberia is like home for me
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
You know, I'm gonna do one in Liberia, then I'm gonna go to Nigeria and potentially do one. Then I'm gonna come back to Ghana and hit a couple more places.
Wow. So education is the thing. Is that
I
that
think
is
it's
going to be your philanthropic,
Definitely.
you know, legacy?
And then, you know, because these kids, kids just want hope.
Yeah.
You know, all of that starts with education, man. And I want to give them the opportunity because my school is pretty much starting from, you know, kindergarten to GS3. GS3 is like junior high. It's like ninth grade in America. Because recently in Ghana, the government made, I think, senior high free, if I'm not mistaken. Like 10th, 11th, 12th grade is completely free.
Okay. So you want to bring them to a point where they
don't have to pay anymore.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, let me stop him at a GS3, which is a ninth grade. And then even the bigger plan I have in mind is once it reaches this ninth grade, maybe take the top 4 students every year and let them come to America and go to some kind of
connect them to
boarding school.
universities here.
Well, it would still be high school. It would be like
it would be high school.
It would
Okay.
still be high school,
Got
10th
you,
grade.
got you.
So let it come out here to some kind of boarding school. I'm going to try to find a boarding school in America to partner with them to have this 4 smartest kids from my school every year to come here
and continue their studies.
And continue their studies. And let us see something different.
Yeah.
And maybe, and the only promise they have to make me, for me giving them a free education is when you make it, don't forget where you came from.
Yeah.
That most important thing, man. You know, we come out, God bless us, and we forget where we came from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So hopefully that's my plan for those kids.
Yeah.
Now with my school, you know, I had a meeting. It's so crazy how back in 2001, when I went back to Ghana for the first time, the first president I saw on TV was John Kufuor. And I met with this guy about 6 months ago at his house.
Wow.
Right. And I'm telling him about what my plans are. And he said, okay, he gave me a great idea. He said, I would suggest, you know, don't overwhelm yourself. Let the kids grow at your school. You know, meaning like start them young, like kindergarten, maybe stop at like class 3. And when this one go up, then get new class. And that way you groom them there.
Right.
You know, don't start off with like getting a 13, 14-year-old, you know, and you don't know how far they went. Grow
Start
the kids
small.
there,
Yeah.
small. So that's the plan. So right now I'm kindergarten to like class 3, and then next year I have a class 5, class 4, 5, so forth. You know, so within like 4 years I should have a completely full school.
When does it? When do kids start school? This year?
They started. We opened the door January 3rd. They started January 10th. It's official.
So they get an education, get a
They
meal
get free
at school.
education, free meal, free uniforms, free books. I don't want these kids to pay for nothing. I don't want no excuse to why you cannot be to school. I told them the only thing they have to pay for, pay attention to the teacher.
Wow.
That's my motto. Pay attention to your teacher.
I love it. I love it. All right. So one of the things many people were asking when they saw you in Ghana, I've seen you a couple of times in Ghana, is what are you doing to help the industry, the entertainment industry, whether it's the music, whether it's the actor? What is your assessment of what is happening culturally on the continent, but specifically say in Ghana?
Well, just the continent period. I think we are so talented and we are so beautiful. You know, and the thing about it, man, we just don't have the platform to show our talent and to show our beauty. You know, and that's one thing I always wanted to do was like, you know, a film studio always been on my mind. You know, somewhere where we could shout, you know, whether
like
it's
Tyler
entertainment
Perry type situation?
You know, something like that. You know, and I remember I tweeted him a while back about it. Still waiting for answers. You know, Tyler's a great guy. He's a very good friend of mine. You know, but I think I'm gonna start small with like maybe like something that I'm familiar with, which is comedy. Started with a comedy club because we have so many funny guys that have come out since I've came out. You know, like it's okay. There's no reason to be shy. Just go on stage, talk about whatever you want. Ghana, we have freedom of speech. Go make fun of whatever you want to make fun of. It's okay. You know, be free. So, and recently, during this year, you know, Dave Chappelle came out there, and he had some workshop at the University of Ghana with Chance the Rapper, and you know, pretty much like a question answer type of thing, asking about his career, and you know, a lot of guys got a chance to ask questions, and then I found out we have like 10 comedians in Ghana that were all there, asking Dave questions. You know, and then Dave talked about opening up a comedy club. That's something I want to do as well. So maybe this might be something
you collaborate
and do one in Ghana. Another place that's really big with comedy is Nigeria.
Yes.
I mean, Nigeria. I mean, those guys are like amazing. You know, and Nigeria is so. I mean, what they got like 250 million people there. You know, so Nigeria is definitely a place to tap in for comedy. There's already plenty of comedians there that are already doing big things. You know, so I think.
What do you make of this interest in African culture in the last couple of years? What do you think is driving it?
I think everybody get a time. I think it's just our time as Africans.
It's our time.
It's our time.
I love
baby.
it.
Our time to shine.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I came here in the late '80s, and you know, it wasn't about, you know, it was like doing the Elder Barge and I'll Be Sure and Michael Jackson. You know, a dark-skinned complexion man, we would look down upon it.
You were
made
the butt
fun
of the
us.
joke.
What
Yes.
about a joke?
Yeah.
Like the thing about it, you know, being in Africa, whether it's Ghana, Nigeria, Liberia, we never saw complexion. We never did.
Yeah.
We all thought it was just all the same.
Right.
I did not know I was dark skinned till I came to America. I didn't know I was dark skinned. I never heard of that.
Right.
You know, because we never looked at complexion. I came to America, I'm hanging out with some kids. They said, "You black?" I said, "Of course, we're all black." He said, "Oh no, you black as hell." I said,
You
"Well,
black.
I said, "How black am I?" He said, "You look like under the bed." That's dark. He said, "I look like I have no bright ideas." He said, "The difference between me and midnight is 11:59. He said, "When God He said, "When God said, 'Let there be light,' I was out of town." He said, "I look like I smoked cigarette backwards." He told me I have to wear white gloves before I eat chocolate so I don't bite my fingers. He told me if Black lives matter, mines matter the most. I'm done with you guys. I had no idea so, you know, and now, guess what? Everybody wants to be black. Everybody wants to find their identity.
Right.
Because it's our time.
It's our time,
guys. You know, everybody get the time. Right now is our time.
This is our time.
And
we're here, we're shining.
We're shining.
Michael Blackson, man. Really proud of you, man.
Appreciate
really
you,
proud
man.
of you. I remember when I first moved here, you're one of the comedians. I mean, I love stand-up comedy. It was not really part of our culture.
Right.
But I used to look at you and hear your voice, and I would connect easily with your material. Not necessarily the material, but just the voice and the speech. And the fact that you maintain that authenticity up to 20 years and you're able to leverage it to this type of success, man. Kudos to you, and whatever they gave you in Nigeria in those 3 seminal years, I think
shout out to Nigeria, shout out to the Igbos in Nigeria.
Now, before I let you go, I want to ask you, what is in the works for you? Like, are you any sitcoms, any specials that you're working on?
The thing with television, you know, you always advise don't talk about it
until it happens,
until it be released. You know what I mean? So I can't even talk about any television show right now. But I am in the verge of putting out a special. I'm going to work on my special this year. I want to work on my 2 personal movies this year. Besides that, I'm touring. You know, my personal mission for this year also to start the school in Liberia. I'm going to definitely do that this year. I'm going to start
this year already, 2023.
This year, I'm going to start it. But you know, like I told you, this is how the plan that God had for me. You know, I'm just not. You know, I realized the other day, like, you know, God picks people to do certain things. I think I'm specially picked, and I can't stop.
Absolutely.
I have to keep going, you know. So
until the vehicle runs out of gas.
Yes, hopefully
you're driving it.
Thank you very much, man.
Michael Blackson, thank you so much for coming.
Me.
I really appreciate you. Appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank
Keep
you.
it, brother. Thanks for representing.
Yes.